What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. An exciting week of Major 4 qualifiers just completed, the second of 3 weeks. Let's take a look at our tier list and see what adjustments we need to make based on the matches from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All right, so here is our list from last week's video. If you're new here, I don't do the letter grades. I think it's kind of whack. I don't think it really articulates kind of the situation we're currently in the CDL. I do it this way. Sunday regulars are top 3 to top 4 teams, basically the teams I expect to make it to Championship Sunday at Major 4. Potential contenders is going to be like the rest of the top 7 to top 8 teams. Work to do is going to be everybody on the edge. Right now, it's basically teams that are on the borderline of qualifying for champs. And then missing pieces is basically everybody else. All right, so we've been starting at the bottom last couple of videos. Let's start at the top with the Sunday regulars. Starting with OPTIC, I think they're in a perfect spot. Don't want to move them. They had a fantastic week this week. They're looking like the current #1 front runner, I think, to potentially win Major 4. Obviously, it's still a bit away, but they took care of business against New York and Thieves. Starting to get a little bit better at control. There's still some occasional issues with trolling in S&D, but the hard point hasn't lost a beat since last Major, so I feel good about their spot right there. All right, next up we have the Toronto Ultra. And I'm going to kind of lead them in this tier, but I'm going to leave them sort of at the back. They did lose to FaZe, and then they beat Florida, so I don't really know what to think about Toronto. If they back in a winner's bracket, and really how they play next week, we'll talk about it. I really want to move them down a tier, but if they make winner's bracket, they're still potentially in the mix for top 4. They start in losers, we're going to need to rethink that. Just S&D looks really off. Everything else, hard point control looks fine to sort of what we expect online. There's nothing really to take away there. It's the S&D has been the problem in all 3 series. They got to improve whatever issues are happening in search. I think with overall slaying right now, Scrap is the one that's really shooting back at an effective, consistent rate. Everybody else is having on and off series, and Hixie in particular is really struggling right now with his ability to get kills. So I want to see an improvement in that. Going into what's going to be a must-win series versus Vegas, first match on Friday. And then we have the LA Thieves, and we're going to go ahead. I think the Thieves are good enough now based on the win versus LAG and the 3-1 loss to OPTIC. I think we're going to slide them up here. I'm actually going to put them in front of Toronto. I really like Thieves' hard point. Still have a bunch of issues in S&D they got to work on. That's why I can't put them over teams like OPTIC and FaZe. S&D wins championships. But the control looks good. They look great in Respawn. If they can clean up some issues around the S&D situational play, which I know we've been repeating that every single week. I feel like every single video I make on Thieves, I bring up the same point, but it's still their issue. I'll feel great, but right now with the Respawn, they should be good enough to get a top 4. I feel like they would still square up well against a Boston, Seattle, and New York. And then we got Atlanta FaZe. I'm going to lead them in the second spot. They just went ahead and beat Toronto 3-1. I'm putting them in front of Thieves because of the situational matchup with them versus Thieves. For FaZe, we're starting to see some improvements in the hard point. We know their S&D is good, and they actually haven't, I believe, and I'm going to double check that. Right now, they are 3-0 and controlling the stage right now. So feel like their game is in a decent spot with a couple more tweaks heading into this event. I think they're probably still going to have to beat OPTIC to win Major 4 likely, but liking kind of where FaZe is at right now with their game and some of the tweaks they made. So I feel good about the top 4. I don't think we're going to move anybody else up there. I think some of you can argue that Toronto should be slid down to potential contenders. I want to see how they do next week against Vegas before I move them down, but they're right on the cut line now. All right, next up, we've got our potential contenders. And I think this also as well as a tier where we're just going to kind of leave the teams as is. I think the order we can kind of think about, it's just really hard. Boston beat London this week. Not really anything really new to add around the Boston conversation. That's just a team they should beat. Seattle only had 1 match as well this week, and that was against Florida. So I just don't really know what to take away from either series. Lamar, by the way, accuracy is playing really good right now. I did want to shout that out in this video. Lamar's having a really good one. Big Wake has been a little bit hit or miss for Boston, and Kremp in his first showing was not too bad for the Breach, but we're going to see more of those teams next week. Boston has to play OPTIC in New York, so we'll see quite a bit of them next week against some good teams. And for Seattle, they have 2 matches against Atlanta FaZe and LAG, so that should be interesting. For New York, took care of business against Rocker and then lost to OPTIC. So my problem is I just don't know how to order this combination of Boston, Seattle, and New York, because they're all about at the same point. So I wouldn't really think too much into this order. I'm just going to kind of leave it as is. But I mean, any one of these 3 teams can get hot at Major 4 and win. I still believe that. Some of them are probably going to be 2-3, 3-2, 4-1, whatever. going to the event, but these are still the clear teams that are going to be possible winners in Major 4 and also very much going to make champs. So let's move on to the two teams that are basically fighting for the remaining champ spot. That is Vegas and Minnesota. And let's start with the Vegas Legion, who had two teams they should have beat this week, and they only beat one of them. They lost to London 3-1, and they beat LAG game 5. Personally, for me, Vegas got to get better at control. It's severely limiting their ability to beat teams like this, especially when they don't bring their A game. They just look completely and utterly lost in control, like the worst team in that game mode. I don't know what to say, man. It's just they got to get better, or they're not going to make champs. It's just pretty clear cut at this point. And then for Rocker, they only had one series this week, and they lost to New York. That's not great. And then Rocker next week have to play FaZe and LA Thieves, which I don't see them beating either team. So there's a decent chance that Rocker might not make winners bracket to this event based on how some of the tiebreakers may go. Vegas had to play Toronto and Florida. So I'm going to leave Vegas over Minnesota for now. I don't have faith really in either team. They torch my pick'ems. They don't show up on a given day. I don't know what to think. And it's possible that them are going to be in losers bracket. I guess we'll see what happens there. All right, now we get to the teams on the bottom, and it's also just a mess here, and I don't really know how to navigate it. So let's start with LAG. They lost both their matches this week. They got 3-1 by LA Thieves, and they lost to Vegas, as we just mentioned, in a game 5. I mean, LAG just don't seem to have the slaying right now. They don't really seem like their teamwork's on the same page. Their hard point doesn't really look good. Search actually looks not too bad for LAG. I'll say that. I actually really like their S&D right now. I'll tip that. Obviously, they lost the game 5 to Vegas, but it is what it is. I don't know. I'm going to leave them at the top of this pack because I still think they're better than Florida and London theoretically, but we'll see. I mean, I guess they still have some maybe deep run potential at this event, but man, I don't know. Just the vibes don't seem good in that camp, and we've talked a lot about the external issues that they have with their org. So Florida had 2 matches this week, and unfortunately Havoc took a step aside due to mental health issues. Hope he's getting well. So Vickle came in, and they lost to Seattle. They got 3-0 by Toronto. They're down bad. I'm actually going to put London above them with compared to this team with Cole Havoc right now. The minute Cole Havoc comes back up, I'll swap them back. That's how I feel right now about that. And for London, they actually won this week. They lost to Boston with Kremp, who was playing for the first time. And they did beat Vegas, which I have to tip. So I don't think anything's really changed my thoughts about London. They have a very shallow map pool, not that great of a search team. Control's still a huge problem. It's a huge limiter in their situation. Their narrow condition is their win condition is so narrow. I just don't really know. I can't really put them above LAG, to be honest. So I think that's our tier list for this week. I just don't think there's much movement within the tiers, to be honest with y'all. Like, Moving Thieves is really the only one I can do right now. Maybe we'll see some shuffle in this 7. And maybe we'll move one of these teams up if they get a 2-0 week. But for now, I think things are starting to settle. The tier list is generally with how this list works. The order is the order, and I don't really know how to order the second potential contenders tier because all of these teams were just sort of mid or like okay this week. I feel pretty good about what's up here. Toronto probably should be down here, but I want to give Toronto the benefit of the doubt, at least for now. Y'all probably yell at me in the comments, but it is what it is. So let me know what you guys think. These are starting to get kind of interesting in the tier list videos. So if you guys have your own thoughts on what I should do, let me know in the comments. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. I don't really know what we're going to do on the YouTube channel this week. I'm hoping we get a champs announced soon. I would love to talk about that. Maybe I'll make a video and talk a little bit about our Major 4 plans at some point. That'll be a fun one. So stick around for some more content this week. As always, guys, we will see you on the next one.